Hello. Good morning, everyone. We're just going. Good morning, everyone. Just hope everyone's having good evening for over here in the morning. It's around 8:30 a.m. So pretty early for some, but yeah. So hope everyone had a wonderful day. That with all the craziness going on, that everyone's healthy, safe, and that things are going okay. Yeah, so we're just going to wait a few minutes here, but we've had a great series of interviews. Thank you for everyone who's been viewing this week. I mean, between Jonathan and then we also had that dance party yesterday. So we've gotten quite a variety of people here. So we're just going to wait a second and just for more people to join in, and then I'm really excited to introduce our next guest. He is a wonderful Odissi dancer, and he's done quite a bit around the Chicago area as well as throughout the country, performance wise. So it's going to be really interesting to hear his take on the art and especially the U.S. dance scene and his experience with it. Okay, great. Well, he is tuning in right now, so let me just bring him on in.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So while that invitation's pending, he should be just jumping in. Okay, there you might be. Hi.
Hey Colin,
Hey, Colin. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing okay, thanks. I know our viewers as well as I still just find it so weird. Like, what are the odds you and I have the same name spelled exactly the same way, and it's just been creating nothing but confusion all week. It's been great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So every time I talk to you and I have to say, "Hey Colin," for me it's like,
Yes,
okay,
I've had multiple people say, "Oh, I'm trying to talk to Colin." I'm like, "I'm right." No, no,
yeah,
no. Okay, I see how it is.
yeah,
But yeah, but
yeah.
okay. Well, how's everything on your end? Is everyone healthy? Everyone safe?
Yes, everyone is good. Back in Mumbai as well as here, everybody's
Hmm.
good. Things have been different, and I think that's for everyone. We had to adjust our lifestyle to what we are doing today, but uh, everything is good. And sorry about that. I have the blue line by my house, so you may hear a little bit of disturbance here and there. So just want to let you
It's okay. Again,
know.
we've experienced quite a bit during the series. It's like it's okay.
Okay.
So the important thing is we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say. And so, just to begin, since we've
Mhm.
had a variety of people on the call who might already be a little familiar, but just for the sake of it, could you tell us a little bit about Odyssey and what drew you to it? Like, what makes Odyssey stand out for you?
All right.
And,
Yes. So I started my journey with Odissi in 2010. And prior to that, I was associated with learning Indian classical, not Indian classical dance, but folk dance back in school. I learned
ah,
a little bit of Kathak when I was when I was studying, and that didn't go very long. I just learned for like 3 months, 4 months, and I'll tell you some of the reasons later on why I kind of disconnected with dance
mhm.
because of studies and other reasons. And I happened to go for a festival, a dance festival called as the Mumbai Festival, which kind of showcased all different forms of dance, uh, including uh, including Kathak, Bharatnatyam, Odissi, and other forms of classical dance. And the music that you listen to in Odissi kind of just took my soul. And it kept on haunting me for the next few days, the same music on and on. And I had never been exposed to Odissi before because, I'm from the West Coast and Odissi is usually from the East Coast. What happens is when you speak to most of the people, even in Bombay. They know
Mhm.
about Kathak, they know about Bharatnatyam, they know about Kathakali. Odissi is not that exposed. These days, yes, it is kind of more famous. People have got to know more about it. But back in those days, even like today, when I speak to people and I show them my photos, they're like, "Oh, you are doing Kathak or you're doing Bharatnatyam." I'm like, "No, I'm doing Odissi." Yeah. So the journey has been it has been from 2010, and if you get a chance, definitely you should watch a live performance with live music because I think the soul of Odissi aesthetics is the music.
Mhm.
So many people who listen to Odissi music will tell you it's different. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you showed us a video of it. I remember when you like one time you showed we were in a group and you showed us the video, and it was very impactful. And obviously, you're a working professional, and then you've also gotten to perform with different organizations and different like festivals throughout the Midwest and other areas of the country. So, having performed it both in India and in the U.S., what would you say is like the biggest difference in its role, like in its role in the respective art scenes? Because obviously the U.S. is a very different context than India, and so you have the uphill battle of people. Maybe people may not be as familiar with it, Odissi on the West Coast in India, but here it's Indian dance in general. So, what is like, how is the experience performing in India and the US really contrasted, or is it actually very similar?
Well, it is similar in many ways as well as
Mhm.
different. So I see a lot of, in India, because you have more artists and people part of the dance community, they understand the details and technicalities of and the grammar of classical dance. And that may be in irrespective of whichever dance form you're talking about. It may be Bharatnatyam, it may be Odissi, or any dance form. There is a grammar related to it. There is you can basically understand the nuances. And here, what I feel is because maybe there's not much of exposure to Indian classical dance, people don't focus that much on the details, the technicalities on it. Especially, learning. I have learned both in Mumbai as well as learned a little bit in Chicago. So I see the difference when even it comes to details. Like for instance, if you have a particular posture or there's a full stop needed, you we have something called as a tribhangi and chauk, which is basically different forms of movements and postures or positions which are very important in dance form. So I see that the art form here is uh, you look at it overall, but the details somewhere are lost in it. But I'm not saying that everybody does that, because I've seen very good artists also, like based in New York, in the West Coast, in San Francisco, even in Chicago and all. I've met artists here who understand the importance of these details. So yes, definitely, you have. I have seen that. I mean, I've seen those similarities back in India also, where people don't give importance. There are some schools basically who are like, okay, you want to learn for your high school graduation and perform somewhere. Yes, people will kind of uh, they will learn just for the sake of learning, till they get one certificate or they finish their art education in school. But that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that has been something you've talked about in the past, where the contrast between the caliber of performers and like the attention to detail that you expect, having especially like, having done performed in India and then to come over here and then kind of see the in what can sometimes be a bit appear to be like a bit of a watered down version to be that was one of the reasons that we were talking about trying to bring in like other artists, try to bring in because I know that when it comes to the US market, sometimes because the awareness is a little lower, some of the artists we know who've been trying to perform in the US have discovered that the audience they have a little harder time getting a hold of the audiences there. And so when you perform, could you talk a little bit about like what are the types of audiences who are showing up for you? Like how are you yeah, like how do you tend to promote it to get people to come view it?
Yeah. So again, depends on the focus of the event.
Hmm.
Sometimes there are events which are say specific for an Indian festival or specific for a particular community. Happens to be that you see a lot of people from the Indian community or from a particular group or state or a particular uh, group of people coming and joining in for that particular event. If it's Indian festival or a Hindu festival for Shivratri or for some other example. But there are other events also where you see a lot of people from apart from the Indian South Asian community, you see people from the international community coming in and seeing events. Because I've seen in Chicago, we have had a lot of events at Navy Pier, some other festivals that we have had, and we definitely see a lot of other people coming in. And that interaction, I've seen a lot of people even from not from the Indian South Asian community who have been very interested in wanting to know more, to understand more, and who actually know more than many of the South Asians that we have in Chicago area.
Yeah, no, Navy Pier is a great public space for it. I mean, that's how, honestly, I've gotten to experience a fair amount of stuff was just because I wandered through Navy Pier at the right time and just came across an incredible performance happening.
Yeah.
So, though those festivals are a good way to get attention,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe, and we're hopefully we can talk a little bit more about just towards the end, we can all talk a little more about what you think we can do in the U.S. to try and raise the profile a little bit or try to get more attention to it, because I know that's been a point of contention for some of our artists who've been trying to make in the U.S. market, is that they're getting the same like 90 South Asian community members for each of their events, and that's kind of where they're happy with, but they want to try to expand and broaden its appeal. So it is kind of a universal uh, conversation we've had with multiple different South Asian artists who've tried coming to the U.S. market, and some are okay with it, but others have been looking to try to expand. So getting some of your thoughts on it, having gotten to perform in many different aspects, festivals with different types of audiences, and so kind of what your thoughts might be on that. But
Mm-hmm.
previously, when we were talking, you mentioned that COVID, you've had to adapt, and that it's also given you time to focus on your dance. Could you elaborate on how this time has impacted your performance, your performance and your approach, and what new ways you might be thinking about it?
Absolutely. And, when we talk about COVID, I remember we had another discussion, and one of the famous gurus, Rama Vaidyanathan, she mentioned, that we need to look at it in a very, I mean, I know that everybody's going through crisis. We are having a lot of things which have changed because of COVID. But for a typical, I would say, middle class or upper middle class families, where you have you have homes, you have shelter, this time, and you have got that extra time where, you can work from home, you can be at home, and most of the artists should look at it in a positive way, because that time is basically for you to do a self introspection, to understand exactly what better can you do in your art form. I'll give you an example is I'm a working professional also. So I
Mhm.
have saved honestly 1 hour, one both way, so 2 hours both ways traveling from work to home and home back from work to home. So those 2 hours basically I get to save, and I can use that to learn or practice my art form. At the
Mhm.
same time, I know a lot of gurus who were not very comfortable coming online and teaching, and working with the art community from online, because they were like, oh, I'm not technically sound, or I have issues and all. Many of my gurus have started coming online and teaching. And so then the whole thing about distance, where I'm in Chicago, somebody is in Bombay, somebody is in New York, uh, has kind of uh, flattened. We don't have any concept. Everybody's virtual. So it gets easier to learn. It gets easier to exchange those ideas, because everybody has started using the online platform. Now, would that remain forever? We don't know. It may be, maybe not.
Mhm.
But at least it has given you that opportunity where people have started coming online. I have a backyard patio space in my area, in my house, and I think many people have started using their apartments to revise stuff, to practice stuff, to do stuff that they can. So yes, definitely there is that. I look at it at a positive side, where uh, I have started revising a lot of old items, which I mean, I have must have done 10 years back, few years back, and
Mhm.
it's kind of we never thought about kind of working on it. And then so that it's very interesting when I speak to other artists also. I know that they have they end up using a lot of time more to self-introspect what exactly they can do better.
Yeah. So, yeah, that self-introspection and the having to move online, that's been a conversation we've had with many of our guests as well as many of our clients trying to adapt to the new sphere. And especially given that one of the biggest opportunities that we've encountered is how much it gets you to potentially expand your audience, because once you're online, you can live stream, you can promote, you can record the video and distribute it. Like, it offers a fair amount of opportunity for people who would have otherwise never gotten to see you or hear of you to actually start building those connections. And so another perspective that I like that you brought up is that for a lot of our clients, some of them might be a little more starting out or a little earlier in their career, and they're trying to figure out how they can be able to make this for their full-time thing, but not to underestimate, but to have that day job, to work around that and still be committed to practicing, is finding ways to still stay involved and do something that you can every day that you can put towards your artistic career in addition to having something for your professional. That is a juggling act. And so kind of appreciate how you've had to still stay committed, because I know weekends you're constantly traveling. We would try to get a hold of you and be like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm in Michigan, I'm in Ann Arbor, I'm performing now. And it's just like, so it is a busy life, but it's been really great getting to see how much it's grown and getting to see you get to practice it as well. And so now, that said, with all the stuff that's been going on, especially in the art scene, but in general, with the recent circumstances about how arts have begun having to address intersectionality, which for those that might not be familiar, intersectionality is how like different aspects of people's identities layer on top of each other to shape their experiences and treatment. So whether it be their religion, their race, their gender identity, their sexuality, their ethnicity, it all plays a role in shaping a more unique how their experience of how they wind up getting to be treated or how they're perceived in their art or in their career. And so given how June is Pride Month and in light of Black Lives Matter, as a man who's done classical dance, who also had to move countries and has had to juggle different aspects of yourself, could you elaborate on how you feel of Odissi as an art form and as a professional has been shaped by your identity?
Absolutely, and thank you for getting that point, because I've seen many people are not very we speak about art form, but I think there is a complete fullness to it, where how art kind of connects with different aspects of our life. And yes, as I told you that initially when I started learning Indian classical dance back in school, I started learning Kathak. I know very well I kind of stopped learning dance because of the fact that people from my relatives, extended family, friends were like, he is a Christian boy, and why is he learning Indian classical dance? There is no relation between that. And my parents were very supportive to me learning dance, but over the period of time, every time, when I spoke about me learning Indian classical dance, I had to face a lot of opposition. There was that thing where boys should not learn dance, and especially Indian classical dance. And again, me coming from a Christian society where Indian classical dance is a lot related to Indian mythology, Hinduism, how do you connect those dots? I kind of gave up my dance form for a couple of years and focused more on studies. I joined engineering, and there was still something missing. Um, there was this art form which was hidden in me, where I used to love dancing, but I kind of repressed that, or kept that. I didn't want to show that identity, just because of the fact that somebody may just make fun of me, or for that matter, I need to portray myself as this guy who is normal. But over the period of time, and I think that's the phase where you start growing up and you understand, okay, this is your identity and this is you would love to do. I started adapting to the fact, or I started, when you start self-introspecting or going through that phase where you understand, okay, this is your identity, you should do what you love to do. And the fact that when I got exposed to Odissi initially, I reached out to my guru back in Mumbai, and I remember very well writing a mail to her, that I am a male, Catholic, Christian guy. Can I learn Odissi? Is there any scope for me to learn Odissi? And she was like, it doesn't care who you are. It doesn't matter what you do. What matters is you love dance and you should dance. And that changed a lot of things how I look at life today. This is the Pride Month, and over the period of time, yes, I decided to speak about my identity, because as an individual, we have different phases of our life. We have different identities: one at work, one at home, one with dance, one with what we do. There are different layers, and at the end of the day, we are all one, just one identity. That's me. And I used to try to keep them in silos where, okay, this is me here. They don't need to intersect. And people, it's okay, to have different lives. But over the period of time, I've started realizing, with awareness and with discussion with other people, I've known a lot of people from the dance community also who identify as queer. And also, there are it's both ways. So I cannot say that every queer person is an artistic person. At the same time, every artistic person is queer. So this generalization of, the fact that, okay, if he's a performing artist, yes, he could be gay, is not right. But at the same time, yes, there could be some people who are that way, and that's fine. So, it could be both ways. So the fact remains is that there are people within our community which exist like that, and not just dance. I know a lot of my queer friends who are artists, in the sense they paint, uh, they write poetry, they are intellectuals, or in other forms are uh, scientists. They are in their form, they are basically artists. So the fact remains is that yes, there is a correlation between the things that I do. Yes, there is. I love to paint. There is there are multiple artistic sides on me, and there is a correlation between dance, because dance is also like, it kind of, there are when I read mythology, I understand what exactly I'm doing, how I'm performing. If you don't have that visualization, you will not be able to perform well. So irrespective of you being what your identity as, queer or straight, or however you identify yourself, the fact remains is that you are an artist, and you should do what you love to do. At the same time, we need to speak up about things which should be so-called normalized. So if I, for instance, want to share a picture of me and my husband, my dance form should not come in the middle, saying that, okay, I should not be able to do it just because I'm an artist, or what will people think about it. So this whole idea about us living separate lives needs to dissolve. And I think it's good that things are changing these days. I know people are speaking about. There are a lot of people who want to hear more. There are a lot of people who want to who identify with this kind of thought process, where they want to live based on reality, and they are good with that.
Yeah. No, and as you said, especially with the arts, it's needing to accept yourself and all facets of you, because you're putting all of yourself in it, in your performance, in your craft, and in your preparation. Just, it's a part of you. And
Yeah,
so if you're at odds and having to fight yourself constantly, it's going to show. And so getting to that place where the fact that you can just be all of you in this performance, that's, it takes a lot. It can take, for some, it can take a long. I'm very glad that you were able to get there. And have you encountered any of the, like, between the U.S. as well as in India? Like, has there been any bit of contrast when it comes to? I know you've previously discussed that there was sometimes bits of rivalry between different dance forms, and you wanting to help bring other dance forms like under the same roof, same performance, collaborate, or be able to at least kind of occupy and work together to promote the wonderfulness of Indian dance. And have you encountered any of that as well? Like
Yeah,
compared to here versus India?
I think more than rivalry, the focus is different for a lot of people, so different for different people. So if I talk about somebody learning maybe Indian classical dance form of Kathak or Bharatanatyam, their focus is only there. And even for me as an Odissi, I focus more on Odissi dance form. But what happens is then we end up working in silos. And definitely that kind of, in a way, gets, I wouldn't say it's a rivalry, but there's a difference in looking at art form where, oh, I may be superior than you, or you may be superior than me. And especially when we talk about the art form in US or in areas where which are the cities of US like Chicago, New York, or San Francisco, where you have a big Indian community. What happens is art form is segregated in those uh, different packets of communities that kind of and promote their form of art. And what happens is in that the rivalry increases. Also, there is um, no exposure to overall Indian classical dance when you go to a particular performance. So, for instance, if I'll give you an example. If there is a community which celebrates a particular festival, uh, the it is more focused on a particular dance form rather than a generalized dance form where everybody can be part of it. So, yes, definitely there is a need for us to come together, to work together, and there should be a scope for more inclusion where we work together as one team and definitely do something.
Yeah, especially since in the US market, like odds are that one style is going to be the one that's being described as what Indian dance is completely. Just because for the
Different,
most
yeah.
of us, like I knew there were different branches of it, but
Hmm.
I didn't really know anything about it till more recent years, and then also getting to talk with you and getting to get like the full list. So honestly, it was just something that I had to sort of taken for granted. Especially if you're looking to expand the audience for Indian dance, then having to collaborate a little bit, show how much variety and all the different takes on it and ways you can go about it is very beneficial. And so, to that end, just for one last question, what piece of advice would you give to an artist trying to make it in the U.S. market?
Yes. So for definitely one is people. I would say there are two kind of artists when you talk about one is people who learn back in India and moving here, immigrants, and then there's one generation of artists who basically um, who end up learning here and start their career or start their art form, their journey in the art form from the US. And I think for people who started their art journey in the art form in the US, definitely there should be that exposure where if you get a time to spend maybe 1 month or more back in your Gurukul back in India, or kind of if you can go to a teacher or an institute where you can stay for some time, learn some uh, local aesthetics in that particular area, it will be very helpful. Like I'll give you an example of Odissi. I know a lot of students, and including me also. I wish that end up going to Orissa sometime, staying there for maybe a month, because there are other aspects of dance also involved in dance, like music, aesthetics. There's observing the sculptures in the temples. Um, Understanding different other aspects of uh, art that is involved. There is jewelry that is involved. You have the silver filigree that you wear for an Odissi form, and you wear a headgear. And so there are those details which sometimes, as an artist, if you understand, you can grow. And not necessarily you need to know that, but if you know that, it definitely helps you. If you understand music for that matter, you can enhance your dance based on music. So, I mean, as you say, dance and music are kind of interrelated. And if you perform something here on recorded music, but you don't know understand the grammar of music, it won't be that helpful. So there are other aspects of dance also that are involved with dance, which you need to get exposed to, you need to understand. And I think if you want to, it's your personal journey, so you should definitely make an attempt to go try to understand more about the art form from where it originated.
Yeah, and there are no shortcuts. And
Yes.
the more that you do it, that's especially because, again, previous you talked about how it's very easy to take the shortcut, like to maybe miss a step, be kind of imprecise or kind of generalize because the American audience doesn't know any better. But so to be able to still have that attention to detail and build from the foundation, have a solid foundation and return to basics, using this time as an opportunity to rebuild yourself from the ground up as far as making sure you have that everything polished before going on. And that is very insightful. So, well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you agreeing to be on here and look forward to talking with you again soon.
All right. Thank you. It's absolutely a pleasure. And thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you very much.
All
Okay,
right.
well, have a
Bye.
great day.
You too.
Bye. Well, thank you for everyone for tuning in and hope you enjoyed it and look forward to even more what happens next coming up soon. But in the meantime, have a wonderful evening and we'll be back.